Works.
Hello, hello. Well, today I'm almost right on time actually, because I wanted to start around 9:30. Actually, technically, I wanted to try to start at 9, but I had too much housework to do. So it's like, well, I can't shirk those duties. That's for sure. Unfortunately, it's going to be a short stream because I need to leave probably about 1, because I got something I got to go take care of at 1:30. So I need to make sure to give myself plenty of time to do it. I didn't end up doing it last week because just the same as what usually happens, I get caught up in a bunch of stuff. See, that's the only thing why I don't stream a lot is because I don't often have a lot of time. Well, I do have a decent amount of time, but I often spend them doing other things. But that's why I'm hoping to try to work on things and possibly get a better setup and schedule. Problem with this thing is that the only one I could schedule was on Sunday at 1:30. That was like the only option. So I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll do that then, just to get started in it. The good thing is I can actually have my chat on screen over here while having the OBS on a different screen instead of having to make the squish the chat all tiny and stuff. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. My and the reason why that is because since I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I did complete one of the 3 total that I'm doing. Come on. Ta-da! See, look, this is one of the 3 that I'm doing for them. And as you can see, ooh, it's nice and red. I've got to smooth it out, iron it out, get all the wrinkles and stuff out because that's one thing this doing this with the hoops does give it wrinkles. The fabric is a little hard, so putting in the dryer some fabric softener, then ironing it out, make sure that it's nice and smooth so that when you frame it, it's smooth. Because like one of the big examples of one of my early works that I actually framed is this one. Other way. Yeah, it's Bow Spider from Mega Man X, which if you've watched it from the beginning, you already know this. And can you see it? Yep, you can see it pretty decently. The little crease that's directly through the middle. Yeah, it's because I kept it folded for a long time. And I tried to improve it just a teensy bit by stretching it out on the where I have it mounted in order to like make it less prominent. But it'd take a little bit more work because again, this Ida fabric can be pretty hard. Like this fabric is like super stiff. Like if you see like right here, it's like paper, like construction paper. So as I mentioned, I was gonna do. I fixed the C off string where it had that big old chin. So I fixed that. That's no longer a problem. Um, just because I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to correct my mistakes again. All right. Now here's the next thing that I need to figure out is how I'm going to start this. I think I'll start from the tooth there. Okay. Because the red is a stark contrast to the black fabric, I don't want to secure it in one of the already stitched sections because I worry that it might bleed through. I don't know if this light's enough. I don't know, that's the only downside of doing black fabric is it can be really hard to see exactly where to go. I've got another really big project that I'm going to be working on that I'm going to do on dark fabric, but I don't know how dark I'm going to do the fabric. But I want it to, I don't want it to be just purely black. I want it to be sort of space, galaxy, something, you know. I haven't even bought the fabric, but I got so many projects right now. As you can see, I've decided to get these new square frames to see how well they are at getting it taut. They do pretty good. I'll say that. They're pretty good. It's not like super mega taut. Um, Not like the way that a good hoop is, but I feel like it'll probably be easier to see in general, at least. Oh, I forgot about my other light too. I guess I could plug that one in too. Maybe that'll help. Oh, dang it. That's another thing I hate. I hate corners because threading always gets caught in the corners. Okay, give me just a second. Can this reach? Just barely. Where's the power button? There we go. I don't know if that really helps, but we're gonna try it. Mhm. I've already started on my next one as well, but instead of starting it from the lettering, I've decided to start it from the logo. I don't know, the lettering, I don't know. I actually feel like the lettering is more difficult than doing the logo itself. Maybe that's just me. Okay, let's see. I may have to periodically stop because I'm also doing laundry. Again, we typically spend the weekends cleaning whenever we can. So, you know, I don't have a whole lot to say. My head's not getting in the way. I guess not. My downside is when people freaking text you while you're using your phone as a webcam. And I will say this is that I definitely am going to be busy most of not next week, but the week after next, because I will be heading out for vacation. Make sure I'm doing this right. Oh yeah. So I definitely won't be able to do any kind of streaming. But of course, Payday 3 came out, and I'm actually not having too much, and I haven't had too much fun with it. It's disappointing to say the least. Um, the YouTuber Carrot, he's not a very big YouTuber, but he's a big Payday 2 guy or Payday guy, and he did a fantastic video that pretty much sums up the problems of the game. I don't agree with him on everything, but what he says is well written. Well written. It's close enough that it's. I'll pretty much tell people like if you really want to know how I feel, just generally watch that, and that's close enough for it to matter. It's just overall the game in general just felt disappointing to me. It's not. It's just not as fun. That's for sure. Yeah, Payday 2 was janky as hell. Like, admittedly, it wasn't a great game in terms of like how it was made, but it was fun, and that's really what matters. There's a lot of games that aren't really well made that are super fun. I mean, heck. Oh, got something in my ear. I mean, heck, before the days of patches and stuff like that, whatever you got with your game is what you got. So if you got the mega ultra jankiest game in the universe, you had to deal with it. Like that was it. You just had to deal. And there's a lot of games that had mega jank in them, which everybody knows about. With Pokemon, you had the missing no glitch in Red and Blue. Nobody sat there and said, "Oh, this game is so badly made. We shouldn't play it." They're like, "This game is so fun." And then when they found awesome glitches like that, they were like, "Oh, these glitches are cool." Like, and yeah, these games also have like basically soft locks and other things like that that essentially ruin the game. Um, if you did the right things and just various annoyances, stuff that didn't work right, like the fact that what was it? Focus energy was it? Something that was supposed to increase your critical hit rate did nothing. Uh, the special stat, which was both special attack and defense, so any Pokemon with a high special stat was a tank. So it made Pokemon like Alakazam be way too overpowered. Stuff like that, you know. But that didn't stop the games from being really fun. So under that same thing, it's like, yeah, Payday 2 was not made by a AAA studio, you know. It was not made by EA pouring, millions and millions of dollars into it. It's a smaller studio pouring what they can into it. So of course the game's going to be janky, and the game at first had a lot of problems. And then over 10 years, they slowly ironed out a lot of those problems for the most part. And then it's an experience pretty much everybody can enjoy. It's there is a little bit of a skill. There can be kind of a skill limit due to the mechanics of the game being so much different from a lot of other games. You can't just pick it up and play it like Call of Duty. You can't just pick it up and play it like Borderlands. It's its own things, so you can't just say, "Oh, it's just like this other game." No, it's not. The only way it's similar is the fact that it's a first person shooter. And so it's possible that Payday 3 is going to be the same way, where it starts off really rough, and then after a while they straighten the game out and it becomes a lot better. See, I started playing Payday 2 2 years after its release in 2015, right? By that point, they had already made a bunch of improvements, but it wasn't too terribly long after that they did what was known as Update 100, which was an update where they fixed, I would say, fixed the skill system, because the prior skill system was insane. First off, you had to pay money to buy skills, which was stupid. So to respec, it took, you know, it basically just took your money and all that kind of stuff. Um, it and the way it worked, the way it locked off new skills was also really strict too. And there's a lot of pointless skills like being able to climb a ladder 35% faster. Nobody cares. And then it was heavily reliant on staple skills, like one of them that if you fell from a certain distance, you would take armor damage instead of health damage, which this was mandatory because otherwise you would basically break your legs if you jumped off any surface. So they just made that the default way the game worked and stuff like that. They modified a lot of it while still keeping a lot of the staple skills like inspire and all that, but nerfing them enough to where they weren't really overpowered. But also with the added difficulties and game modes and stuff like that, it got to the point where, you know, hey, Inspire Ace is great, but regular Inspire is also really useful if you even want to use Inspire at all. Because like, oh yeah, Inspire Ace is great, but it also limits you to like 7 meters. So it's like, well, if you're that close to them, you could really just run up to them, and it doesn't. And there's a lot of ways that it won't activate. And then when they added perk decks, and there's so many different ways to play the game. So that may be all Payday 3 needs is just some time for them to make the game better. Add more content, add more play styles, fix a lot of the problems because it has a lot of problems. Make it more interesting because there's a lot of stuff that's really boring about it. Like the menuing the UI is so bad. It has a horrible UI. Like, oh my God. Like Payday 2's UI wasn't all that great. You know, it took some getting used to, but it was compact enough to not be intrusive, um, but also fairly easy to learn, right? Uh, uh, Payday 3's is all over the place, and hell, it took me a while to figure it out too. Like I was like, what? And it also has there's like a very slight improvements, but most of it is a downgrade. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that they could improve the game. But the problem is not only did it have massive, massive, massive issues with their servers when the game first came out that have largely been fixed, but it still crops up from time to time, is the fact that they were talking about a Q quality of life update that was going to take place October 5th. As you can tell, it's the 22nd. Little bit behind on that, right? Well, they did explicitly say a short time after that, hey, we're going to have to split it into two updates because it's so big, and it's going to be pushed back to October 15th. Well, the reason why I'm mentioning it, because it's 22nd, and unless I'm mistaken, we still have not seen the update. I don't go on the subreddit anymore because there's a lot of jerks on that, I'll say. A lot of people that turn it into this huge thing. The people that are against it sometimes won't stop posting about the same thing over and over again. And some of them are jerks, but a lot of the people that like Payday 3 are also like really, really caustic and toxic, to use those words, right? There's a lot of jerks that really like it, and I'm like, why are you being a jerk about it? Who cares if people like Payday 2 better? You know, like where's the problem? People are allowed to like whatever they like, man. It's just a game. But no, people get really infuriated, and I personally think it has something to do with the fact that Payday 3 um has crossplay, and it's also going to have cross-platform support, something that Payday 2 did not have. Like Payday 2 was really bad in the fact that console players basically got nothing. Like after a while, they just pretty much stopped updating it completely. So they were way behind. And I think that's part of it, is that now that console players can play Payday, we have a lot more console players that are involved in talking about the game, playing the game, etc., etc. But at the same time, I don't like to think of a different group of gamers as being a bunch of jerks, but apparently they are. Like, are they children? I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. Because, like, for example, when Rose plays Fortnite, because she plays it on the Xbox One, if she's playing it by herself, she typically gets grouped with other Xbox players. And a lot of times they are almost literal infants. I'm like dead serious. Like they're like, "You suck at this game." And you're like, "What the hell?" Seriously, the other day she had somebody with like like it sounded like an infant, like a baby voice, call someone a bitch ass n-word. It's like, "What the fuck? You're like 8 years old. Shut the fuck up." What the hell are you talking about? You're still breastfeeding and you're trying to talk mad shit? Okay. And was it last night she was playing, and there were two young people, and one of them, he died pretty quick, but he spent the whole game like talking trash to another player who basically didn't respond at all. He's just like, "You're really annoying." That's all he was saying. And the other one was like, "You suck at this game." It's like, what the hell, man? And I'm wondering if that's what's happening on places like Reddit and stuff. People are really annoying about it. It's like, look, if you prefer Payday 3, if you like it, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You're allowed to like whatever you want. Just, you know, stop making it out to be that people who prefer Payday 2 are idiots or assholes or something. Like, come on, y'all. Calm down. So I just stay away from it. I'm like, nope. I'm just gonna read. I like all I was doing was just reading what people were saying, and only interact sometimes when it's absolutely necessary. Because like I'm not getting dragged into this 600-year long discussion. I've got better things to do. Although I do sometimes spend a little too much time on Reddit, and Reddit does suck. But hey, it gives me something to do, right? I should throw away my phone anyway, though. Nah, I removed the app from my phone because it's like, nah. Like seeing, when you have the new posts that come every day, and then you have to see the 1,400 different posts. I'll be right back. I gotta get more coffee. I tell you, one of the annoying things about it is that everyone is on that well actually train, and I can't stand that. Especially when there's no need to be. I like to describe it like this, where so people want to say stuff like, well, actually, right? Sometimes well, actually is irrelevant. You know, like you don't always have to. Everything doesn't always have to be meticulously correct. Everything doesn't always have to be like, you know, a Wikipedia article style. Or I say that, and Wikipedia's gotten a little wonky over the years, but uh, I mean, granted, it's always been a little wonky, but hmm, at the same time, there's other ways that it's gotten even more wonky because of how well known and popular it is. So groups, individuals, companies, and things like that get really incensed on what Wikipedia says. So, it becomes a whole thing. And it's like, really? Wikipedia? I wouldn't say it's gone to the level of becoming like editorialized or journalistic, but it kind of does. But that's irrelevant. What I was saying is that it's just this well actually thing. Well, actually. It's the kind of thing where like somebody dies and then you're like you're like, well, I hope they're, a guy might die, right? And you're just like, well, I hope they're that his significant other and their child is able to do well. And then someone says, well, actually, that's his stepchild, or you know, is their stepchild, or like the child's adopted, or some other thing where they're like, well, actually, and then you just want to turn to them and like shake them really hard and be like, it's irrelevant, you know. It's like, bro, come on. There are things in life that are way more important than whatever the hell you're trying to do. Like, there's this pathological need to be right that's very annoying. Because it's like, why do we have to deconstruct absolutely everything to make sure that it's like this perfect beacon of whatever? Because at the same time, we don't really put that much effort on everything else. Movies, TV shows, video games, and even going back to journalism, right? Journalistic sources. You know, hell, how many times have politicians said something that's like off by a significant degree, and people are like, well, it's close enough, or they say, well, that they actually meant was this. It was just they just misspoke, right? Uh, it's like, well, can we get that same benefit of the doubt? So that what's important about my message gets through. Like, I don't like having to preface every statement I ever make with like all these little qualifiers to make sure that the fact checkers can pop up and say that what I said is perfectly correct. When I'm like wishing somebody well or something like that. Because I actually had that happen one time. I was like, well, I'm glad that nobody got hurt. And they're like, well, because blank blank, they just don't know that somebody got hurt. And it's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I didn't say it like that. I was just like, bruh, I'm trying to spread positivity and wish these people well. You know, did you really just come here to do that? Like, it'd be one thing if I said something like egregiously wrong, but it's another thing if it's something else. It's just, I don't know. That website rubs me the wrong way. It's got good information for a lot of stuff, but a lot of times it involves interacting with like people who are terminally online. And it kind of goes to that same thing that I criticize social media for. I like to call social media the devil, and that's because I feel like it induces some form of like sociopathy in people. Like, they don't treat it like it's actually a human being on the other end. that it's no better than like you're talking to an AI in a computer, a bot, whatever. And also social media is also filled with a lot of bots too. Like um as much as I can't stand as much as I can't stand Elon Musk, which has nothing to do with politics, it's everything to do with the fact that I hate Tesla ever since I worked for them. Uh I got a chip on my shoulder about it. So let me clean it off there. No, what was I saying? Oh yeah. He did make a good point about how something like Twitter is filled with to the brim with bots. Because it doesn't really take that much effort to make a bot. Because you can have pre-programmed uh, uh, statements, phrases, things like that that are written by a human that it uses in response to certain keywords and phrases. Because you can tell that sometimes uh, when someone responds to what you say with something that's not exactly a response to that statement, that's something that always makes me feel sus. Where I'm like, are you actually talking to me or are you talking to somebody else? But it's also incensed to give you to try to get you to have an emotional reaction, because when people are emotional, they typically, goes into, like we talk about with mindfulness, wise mind, all that. When you're in the emotional mind, you tend not to be reasonable, you know, and you're quick to commit action and things like that. The action urges can be really strong. So, when you get a bot that can be pre-programmed to say certain things that will set you off kilter, that will make you respond, then again, it can respond in kind from there, based on keywords, key phrases, and things like that. Because again, something like the English language, while it is complex, it does have a large variety of rules that we know very well. Like nobody's gonna sit here and talk like Yoda and say the dog and cat, the food has been eaten. They're gonna say the dog and cat has eaten the food, or you would just say the dog and cat has eaten. So that's something that's fairly easy for a computer to parse. That's why one of the quickest ways to confuse bots is is to try to change up the syntax of what you say that has abstraction in it. Because like if I encounter somebody and they're something very suspicious about it, I change up. I will change up the specific syntax of what I say. See, humans are able to abstract, right? Because we have imagination and things like that. We are able to perceive outside of our own senses. See, I've been reading Heretics of Dune, which I don't like all that much. Not yet, anyway. I got to read it all the way through, but I don't know. It's a little weird, you know. And I was actually thinking earlier this morning, because see, one of the things that Messiah of Dune points out, the problem of prescience, is that if you have the ability to literally see the future objectively, then you're pretty much doomed to that. Because if you're seeing the future, you're seeing the future, right? That means that is going to happen. If you want to be able to see the future and actually change it, then what you need to be able to see is possible futures, But here's the funny thing: we technically already have that ability. We have the ability to perceive the abstraction of the future by knowing things like cause and effect. I know if I eat rotten food, I get sick. So I avoid eating the rotten food. Technically, I predicted the future and then avoided it based on my prediction. So it's not the same as prescience, right? And when you think about it, to that degree, that sort of elevates us a certain level above, to a certain level of consciousness that we essentially have the ability to predict the future based on our, experience and knowledge, right? You can't just predict it blindly. You know, and it kind of goes to what I was saying about abstraction. It's because we have the ability to abstract. Not just cause and effect, but we have the ability to reasonably, even without much information or evidence specifically, we can abstract that, right? Like the average person, you know, won't like won't like if you pinch them, right? The average person won't like that. So you can assume reasonably that, trying to pinch someone is not going to make them happy. Of course, there could be someone that does. You can put together clues, deductive reasoning, stuff like that. You know, and this abstract ability is something that bots are not able to do. So when you start speaking in a more abstract way, in a way that people kind of have to fill in the gaps or use that deductive reasoning, they get confused and they become unsure of how to respond. Now, sometimes that's not to say that everyone who responds that way is a bot, but it's to say that if someone that if you're making a reasonable argument, you know, like you're not being fallacious. You're not being unreasonable or irrational. You're making a fair argument. Man, that's tight. You're not personally attacking them, things like that. And if they decide they want to commit these fallacies and act in a way that's unreasonable, specifically if they begin to personally attack you, then the best thing to do at that point is just to disconnect from them because they're not going to be very nice. They're not going to be friendly. You're not going to be able to convince them of anything, and they're not going to even give you the basic level of validation or respect that you might want. You know, because I noticed that if that a lot of times if I make like a really long statement, because I'll make very long statements in regards to something that's essentially a big thing, and then you'll get individuals that just simply won't read it, and it's like, so you really don't care what I have to say, you just wanted to pop in and tell me I'm wrong. Well, that's your prerogative, but also I kind of don't care because the reason why I expressed my opinion is because I wanted to express it. If you need to express yourself too, that's cool, but you know, you don't have to respond. That's an important thing to remember. You don't have to respond. If someone's being irrational, just go ahead and block them. Don't bother. Because then at that point, they'll probably strut around and act like they won, even though you were being a jerk, or even though they were being a jerk. I've seen that too, where someone's like, LOL, they blocked me. It's like, yeah, because you were insulting me. You just have to brush it off and be like, okay, whatever, idiot. You say that to yourself. Don't say it to them. And people get so fucking personal, man. They get so personal about the stuff. It's like, who cares? Like, it's just a game. It's just a this. It's just a that. It's not that important. They're so. Mm. But again, it goes to that sociopathy thing that I was talking about because now I don't advocate violence in response to anything except, violent actions. Uh, there is one thing I will say that there are some stuff that people will say online. They are perfectly willing to say online that they wouldn't say in person because they know if they did, they'd get punched in the face. And I think we need a little bit of that in society. I'm not saying people need to get beaten. I am saying that some people need to learn the consequences of what they say and learn that, man, maybe I shouldn't talk like this. when people actually try to tell you to commit self-harm in some kind of way, it's like you have never said that to somebody in person, have you? Because, hmm. And it's not even just the violence aspect of it. It's like if they have the capability of empathy, they would see how something like that affects somebody and it would hurt them just as much as it hurts the other person if they have the capability of empathy. And then they would realize, wow, I shouldn't be like that. I need to change who I am. Or they would not feel anything and then they would hopefully realize something about themselves. Because I won't go into specifics, but I will tell a story about when I was a kid. Uh, when I was very young, the way I was acting to one person, uh, me and them were fighting, and I called them something that someone else overheard, and it made me feel bad because even though I wasn't sure of how it made them felt, or even 100% if they had overheard it, but I felt like they did. And then when I realized, I was like, oh, that's a bad thing to be like that. I was like, well, I can't be like that anymore because it hurts people to say that kind of thing, you know. So even if I'm mad at somebody, it's a horrible thing to try to hurt them in that manner because it's a hurtful thing to say in general, not just to the person that you're angry at, but like to anybody who might hear it, because it sort of encompasses more than just the insult, right? I won't go in, like I said, I won't go into any more specifics, but it's pretty much like that, you know, like anything that is, well, you know, and it's stuff like that. And I think a lot of people need those kind of experiences because even being on the autism spectrum, it's still like, well, you know, I'm not there's a lot of cases I'm not necessarily the best at picking up on social cues, but there are some instances like that where I can feel empathy, unless it's me projecting, but you know, it's something that I learned from and realized, oh, okay. And again, I was very little, so it's not like a case of like, oh, I need to grow up. It was a case of like, I just need to not do this anymore because this is bad. And I think we need more of that on social media. And I don't even mean like a debate style, like a, you know, an official Lincoln Douglas style debate. I mean, it's just like getting to be in a room full of people and then talking with them. But then again, at the same time, you can see a lot of this with like people on like you can see videos of this on YouTube. Um, I, I don't know if it's as common for people on generally on the left, you know, left politically in America. I don't believe in the left and right paradigm. I think that it's actually more of a two-dimensional spectrum, but I think it's actually way more complex than that too. Uh, I feel like it's as much of a spectrum as a lot of things in our lives. But people like to parse it down because it's easy to say us versus them, right? But anyway, I don't think it's common for people who typically are considered to be on the left in America, as it is for people who typically are considered to be on the right. Um, but what I have seen is you get some individuals. I think what's his name? Uh, that kind of young looking guy. What's his name? Not the guy with the like small face, but like Crowder. That guy, the Crowder guy. I know he has the meme, the change my mind meme, where he would like go out in public and like talk to people and say, "This is what I believe, change my mind." Uh, you know, where he'd have people sit down and talk with them. And I've seen a few videos of it, and I've seen how some people get really incensed to act aggressive or angry, insulting, and even assaulting at times. And it's like, so that's part of the thing with like the social media stuff is I feel like it's affecting us so much that it is bleeding out into the real world. I'm not sure if anyone got arrested or like kicked out or whatever. I think if you assault somebody, you at least need to have a conversation with the police where they tell you you can't do that. They say that something. They need to know that you can't hurt other people because you disagree with them, even if they believe something crazy. If they're not, if they're not hurting you, literally, like, then it's you don't need to be hurting them because there are some people with some asshole beliefs, but I have the right to go and say I disagree with you and I think you're an asshole, but I don't have the right to punch them in the head. Now, if they try to punch me in the head, well, we're gonna tangle, right? But that's not what we're talking about, right? Um, and as much as I disagree with this, that, and the other, I'm like, you still need to be reasonable. And I think a lot of this social media stuff is just encouraging people to act in this manner, to act really unreasonable and all that, you know. And it's like, why? You know, why? And I know that there's a lot of stuff about beliefs that they say, well, this belief is is bad for this reason and it ultimately leads to this. And I'm like, for the most part, sure, right? But not necessarily. Because as I pointed out, like when it comes to religion, right? There are terrorists of every kind of religion, right? There are Buddhist terrorists because it's more about the individual, their experiences, their circumstances, and just a variety of things that they've had to deal with, and especially how they are recorded, I should say. How they, um, what is it? I'm trying to think. Like you might have a dictatorship in like Southeast Asia, right? Like some country, because some countries over there have had or do have dictatorships, and then there might be a group of group of religious people that don't like the fact that their group is being oppressed by that government for whatever reason, right? And so then they are trying to fight back using violence against a violent, brutal dictatorship government, and that government says, well, they're terrorists. And because of maybe economic reasons or political reasons, other countries allied with them might say, well, yeah, they're terrorists. You know, the world, and that's kind of how the world is. So yeah, they're terrorists, um, et cetera, et cetera. So you get kind of stuff like that, you know, and it's like, so you have to look at it more like that specific circumstances, like like what built them, who are they, what are they doing, rather than judging an entire group that way. And that kind of, what was I originally talking about? I can't remember. Something like that. I think especially right now we get like with a lot of this war stuff and everything like that, people want to like parse it down to being, want to make it down to like simplest terms like, well, this side is bad. No, this side is bad. It's like if they're doing bad things and hurting people, that's absolutely unacceptable. Because this is something I've said before, is that no matter how much of a victim you feel you are, you know, pain, what is it? Escalation, aggression, and paying unto evil does not necessarily help. Because I mean, it all just leads to more evil. Like that's the thing. What was it? Going to like the Ukraine and Russia thing. Russia felt, of course, they've given like I think 5 different reasons or something for why that whole situation happened. They said a lot of stuff. And it's like, well, regardless of whatever you guys felt, you did invade a sovereign nation. Like, what are you doing? And it's the same thing with a lot of this other stuff. It's like, with what's going on in the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know, I understand that that it's a complex issue, but also, one way or the other, I can't get behind hurting people at all. and something needs to be done, you know? Not necessarily saying that, well, you know, because I mean, hell, let's take it back. Let's do the Godwin's law, right? Going all the way back to World War II, the Germans felt victimized by the Versailles Treaty. They felt like they were unrighteously blamed for World War One when it was a complex situation. They felt like they were forced to take all of the blame and essentially damage their country for something that they didn't feel like was necessarily their fault. You know, and this damage to national pride and things like that made it to, and especially with the economy failing and things like that, made it really, really easy for the Nazis to take over because they came in and said, "We'll fix the economy. We'll make Germany great again." Okay, scratch that. I'm not trying to equate current American politics to that, right? I'm just relating it in terms of national pride because having national pride isn't necessarily bad. It's just bad once you decide it means that you can invade other nations and wholesale slaughter people. You know, that's where the problem comes in. You're allowed to love your country just as long as you don't say, "Well, we love our country, but you know what would make our country better? You know, if we just started a couple of wars." It kind of came off. It kind of just came off like, you know. Again, I tell people that I typically don't, because I've made this point before that I don't typically like to vote the primary two parties, but damn. I'm trying to make sure that it's come across. I'm not trying to attach American politics to that. I just see, yeah, I messed up now because I'm thinking too much. I'm just see. You got to admit though, you got to admit that it could have been a good slogan back then. See now I sound like I'm being a jerk to these people who, oh crap. What I was generally saying was that Germany felt like they were the victims, and that led them to doing bad things. So just because they felt like they were the victims didn't mean that they were. And it's effective to keep in mind that your victimhood, regardless of its legitimacy, does not enable you to act a certain way to people. Because people are still people. And that's kind of how like it goes. Um, you know, I was thinking of this the other day. Like you get, you know, like you where the hell is my flashlight? I wanted to use my flashlight a little bit, but I can't find it. Give me just a moment. You know, it's always that case like, you know, you might get someone that comes and punches you in the back of the head, you know, and then of course you're like, "What the hell? Why did you do that?" And it's like because they felt victimized by something you did. Well, it turns out that something you did was because you felt victimized because of somebody else. And then that somebody else did the thing because they felt victimized by somebody else. And it goes like that for all eternity, right? Judge Mathis, I like to point this out. Judge Mathis said it like this: eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, you both be blind and toothless. I'm going to see. Is that too bright? It's not too terribly bright. My light's flickering. This thing better not be going bad. There we go. It is too bright, but I wanted to at least get that one out. I don't know why it's flickering though. Whatever. Is it fully charged? Maybe the battery's not seated right. Yeah. So, that's my thing. It's like it's easy to convince yourself that you are entitled to act any kind of way, right? But you're really not. You still have to be fair and mindful and, empathetic to other people, even if you disagree with them. Hell, even if you feel hurt by them, because I made this point a couple of times, because I actually made this point when we were talking about this stuff in the CwC Discord, was that I don't associate with my parents because of everything that went on between us, right? And yeah, I'll say like I felt victimized. However, my solution is they're allowed to live their life, and that's it. I'm not going to interfere with it. I'm not going to associate with them, but it's going to be what it is. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They get to live their life, and hopefully they're able to be happy, and hopefully they don't hurt anybody else. Hopefully it all goes well, right? I just don't want to associate with them anymore. And then that's that. You know, it would be ineffective for me to wish to spend time wishing revenge on them, to want to hurt them, to yeah, let's do some bad things to them. You know what? Let's trick them. Yeah, let's make them think I'm gonna reconcile with them and then go and throw a fit at a public diner or whatever, right? What would be the point in that? I might feel great about it at first, but what would it do? Where would it lead? It would make them feel like victims, especially if they are working to change their life, especially if they are trying to grow as people, you know, or they want to apologize or they want to make amends and stuff like that. And I come out and I'm just this unreasonable asshole, right? Now it's like, well, fine, what's the point of getting better? Because the people or person or whatever we are trying to get better for is an asshole, is not doesn't care, or wants to hurt us. Well, what's the point? And then they might end up hurting more people or hurting me. It wouldn't make me happy. And it goes that same thing, you know, like even if you're not Christian, you have to admit the golden rule is pretty awesome. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. In other words, if you don't want it done to you, then go ahead and just put it in a case, put it away. You don't need it. You know, like that's why with my job, I give my counterperson a lot of room for his medical stuff and everything because I myself have things I have to worry about. And so I could be a total jerk and be like, "Oh, you've missed so much. You need to you need to actually come to work." Oh, or I could be like, "Yeah, take your time. Do what you got to do, buddy." Ah, I hate these mechanic lights with weird features. Anyway, like I said, I could be a total jerk and give him all these stipulations and all that. Now, if it was a problem where it seemed like he was consistently having trouble, I might be like, well, we might have to see if we can change some things so that the way we work and the way you work can all work together. Like if he was missing 2 days a week or something like that, it might be like, well, we might have to move you down to part time, right? Uh, or we might, or if there's a position in a different section of this business that might help reduce these problems, uh, then, I'd be interested in that because I don't want to see him get fired. I don't want to see him get laid off, or have to lose his job because of medical stuff. Because he could stay home and take disability, but he doesn't want to, which I understand because I wouldn't want to either. Plus, the process of going through disability is a nightmare anyway. Like, you have to, like, literally not work for a long period of time, which means that you also have to have somebody that can hold you up for a long time or have a massive amount of savings you can burn through when it's just easier just to get a job. Because they'll be like, well, obviously you don't need disability. It's like, have you seen my legs? Like you be in a will, you could be a paraplegic, and they'd still be like, well, I mean, you have a job. It's pretty funny how terrible the system is. But because my own thing, because I go to group on Tuesdays, and I've worked for companies before that didn't want to give me that time, and the thing that frustrated me about that is like, hey, I need that time, you know, because this is something I do, and it helps me, So why would I make someone force someone to be in the same situation that I myself hated? Because sometimes, ooh, I do get frustrated at my counterperson sometimes for a variety of reasons, right? But do I go, well, because he upset me, because he did this thing wrong, even after I told him to not do it wrong, uh, that means I'm gonna do this to him, even though yeah, he did something wrong, but yeah, he made a mistake. He might have forgotten. He might have got lost in his head. He might have got stuck in his habits for whatever reason. He didn't do it right, right? But do I need to punish him in some way that is unfair and unreasonable just because I feel some degree of victimization? Because in this case I am in the right. My my standards for the job, the policies and procedures have to be followed. There's a reason we have them, right? If they were unreasonable, that'd be one thing, but I try not to be unreasonable, right? They do have to be they do have to be followed. So if he fails to follow them, well, that's a mistake in some regard. But just because I'm in the right doesn't justify anything I do. I'll be right back. I'm trying to find a light that doesn't have multiple settings. I think all of my lights have multiple settings. It's it's actually really annoying. Again, it's a thing with mechanical lights. They often have multiple settings, so you can have them as like not too bright. I don't like it. It's my old Mac Code Tools light. It's a great little pocket light. It's like way better than like if you want a pocket light, especially if you want to do some like Harry Mason cosplay or something like that. This I feel like works a lot better in terms of an actual flashlight versus like those old military flashlights with those terrible bulbs. Those things are horrible. But this one's okay. I've had it for a long time. Like 5 years. Actually more than that. It had to be more than that. It still works too, so Oh yeah, we're making good progress here. Okay, how many stitches is that I got to do in the middle part? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at that. Lucky number 7. Because I think it's also super common in relationships for people to feel justified to act any kind of way, and it's usually not, and it's not going to be very effective for the relationship to just act any kind of way just because you feel you're in the right. And even if you are in the right in some regard, you know, you don't just do anything, because it's not like you're going to say, well, I was right, and your partner's going to go, oh, okay, well, you being a jerk to me was okay. They're going to like, yeah, but you were a jerk to me. It again, it goes, it's part of the stuff that I've learned, through mindfulness and all that, about the concept of effective and ineffective, right? Rather than necessarily saying good or bad, you have to think about effective or ineffective. So, while you may have told you may have told your partner that you want the trash taken out by a certain time, that way it's not too late to take it out because you don't want to take it out super late at night. But it also needs to go out because trash day is whatever, whatever, and they keep forgetting, right? It's not effective for your relationship to eventually yell at them about it or to do some like passive aggressive stuff and things like that. It might make you feel better, okay, like for a moment, and you know, um, and you might feel justified, and you might even be somewhat justified because you don't want the trash to pile up, you don't want the house to smell, you don't want to get rats, roaches, whatever. You don't want all the consequences of this. I'm just gonna do this. But at the same time, it's not going to be effective for your relationship because if you look at it like this, your partner is going to say, well, you yelled at me, I don't like that. So now they're going to be hurt. And the goal for your relationship have a is to have a good, happy relationship. The goal for taking out the trash is you want the trash taken out in time so that you don't face the consequences of untaken out trash. Well, you need to find an effective solution to both of those, you know? Because if you sacrifice one goal for the other, well, oh, hey, your house doesn't smell like trash, but you also live alone now. And you have to take the trash out every day yourself. So, you've got two big disadvantages to acting like that. So you have to try to balance your goals, um, and be effective towards that balance of goals. Because you can't achieve everything you've ever wanted, but you can at least find a good balance, a happy medium, right? And to say, well, this is what I want, in which case you can say, hey, like a good example using that trash thing is to say, hey, what can we do to make sure that you remember to do it or that you're able to do it? Do you need help? Do you need me to remind you? Do you need to set an alarm on your phone? What can we do? Like, should we set up like a chore wheel or whatever? You know, because then it'll be much easier for them to respect and appreciate you because you're working with them and you're working with the goal of keeping a stable relationship in your mind instead of just taking out the trash. And it can be really difficult when you are, especially when you are neurodivergent of any kind, because the tendency to get hyper fixated, hyper focused, and to obsess over your goals, that can be really, really difficult to deal with. because obviously you want your goals to be accomplished. You know, your goals need to be accomplished to some degree, right? Let me double check this. Okay, cool. It's even. See, it's coming along. It's a little buck tooth, but it's coming along. Not buck tooth, but it's a little lopsided, but it's coming along. It's actually coming along a lot faster than I expected. See, it's 10:40, so I've only been doing this for a little over an hour. Now, after I finish this, I'm not sure what project I may work on for my next cross-stitching stream. I probably have to plan it out because I don't want to do the same thing. Because I want to stitch on something with lighter fabric so that it makes it easier than this. But I've got a couple of projects. Like I mentioned, my triple triad thing. The problem there was also making the pattern, so I may have to. Uh, so with that, I may have to actually spend a portion of it making, working on the pattern because I've got the main part of the pattern, but I still have things like I want to put the lettering on it. I want to put the little design around it, and I want to put the little scoreboard at the bottom. But all that's going to take some type of planning. Chat. How can I access chat? We're going to do one of these. A little one of these. Get something going. Make sure it's working too. It is. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at him go. Oh, I think he's gonna actually land. No, missed it. Oh well. Very fun. Again, I haven't done any more research on how to add more stuff to my stream. Oh, that's my character. Okay. Because I want to try to see if I can add like functions and stuff like that, like do the points and have it be functions. But I don't know if you actually have to be like monetized with Twitch to do it. I don't think so, but I've got to do more research. I've been trying to spend a lot more effort doing video editing. So that's another thing is I got to do I got a bunch more edits I got to work on. Cuz I've been getting good ideas from the community of CwC. Like from I got one from the Ripper playthrough that I want to do. And I've got two ideas from the Phantasmagoria playthrough that I want to do. One of them combines the tarot scene with Cyberpunk 2077, and another one is going to be something from Rocko's Modern Life. I've got to get the clips. And then there's going to be a lot of editing and masking, which isn't too difficult. I'm getting better at it because I recently did a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure meme that had some complex masking, but it came out really, really well. So I'm really proud of that. I just have to put more effort to into these edits. Again, I've got a lot of memes. Let me turn this a little. Make sure it's centered on me. Um, Again, I have them noted down. I'm writing down, and I'm trying to make sure that I go through a little bit over time. And speaking of which, that also goes into what I was going to say about live streaming. So again, I've got to continue my Resident Evil one. Because again, as we go deeper into it, it's going to be more and more games I've never played. So I have to find a way to access the game first off. Um, and then what's the next one? Then I want to continue streaming Elisa. The big problem is I haven't had that much energy for playing games. Since I got so disappointed by Payday 3, I've been kind of burnt out on trying to play games. So I really haven't been playing that many video games right now. I'm just really I don't know, I just don't have the energy. Plus I've got a lot of other things I've got to try to fix. Like my like with my MP3 player, it has a bunch of new songs I've added that aren't showing up. So I've got to figure out like what's wrong with the files and stuff. Because I think that the you have some instances where the headers are broken and stuff like that, you know. I gotta figure out what's going on there. And then I've got a lot of stuff I've got to sort through because I'm kind of a data hoarder. So, like, for example, I've got memes that are like 15 years old saved on my stuff. Like, it's crazy. Um, and so the problem is sorting through that. Like, it doesn't even have to be a strict sort. It just has to be like good enough. Like, oh, all my memes go into a meme folder. You know, all my images, like infographics and stuff like that, go into a different folder. My cross stitching stuff goes into a folder. Art stuff goes into another folder, etc. The problem is I have like upwards of like over like 10,000 different things I've got to sort through. It's not too difficult to sort through them in mass because typically if I've got like 5 images saved on a certain topic, they're going to be all similar numbers and names and stuff. So I can just like, you know, highlight them and then just move them in bulk. It still does take a lot of time though. I got to sort through all that stuff. And of course, there's also the deleting it part. That's not working. Let me try this. Like I got to go through images and be like, that's pointless, or that's old, outdated, or I don't need that, whatever, and delete all that, you know. Like, oh, I might have saved this image because it's a screenshot of a song I Shazammed. Well, I've had that song for a year and a half, so I don't need this image. I can delete it. You get things like that. And I've got to sort through all that, which it takes forever. Luckily, I get a decent amount of downtime at work, so I can like use that time to do that. Plus, right now, I've got a couple of things I'm trying to decide on, like involving my hobbies. I've got a lot of random hobbies, and to be honest, I like things to be simple. And I feel like I have far too many hobbies to worry about. Like, I guess it's cool if you have hobbies that you don't necessarily touch for a while, but it also kind of stresses me out when you're like really limited on it, you know? I was thinking about getting rid of my Dungeon Dice Monster stuff. And every once in a while, I think about getting rid of my Nerf stuff. Like, do I really need to have an entire collection of Nerf stuff? Or can I just have like a few Nerf, a few Nerf blasters? You know, I don't know. It's not even this. It's well, a little bit of it's the money. I could sell it, use that money, and put it to important things, or put it to other hobbies, or just things that are important in general. You know, because I started budgeting, so I can make sure to maintain. So I could, you know, try to try to get down my debts, try to make sure to save up money and things like that. Because I'm also going to have to deal with these student loans coming up. The fact that I'm going to have to pay them back now. Luckily, I don't have that much in student loans. Um, but again, I don't want them to garnish my pay or cause me any kind of trouble with them, right? So I'm going to have to definitely pay them. For some reason, I've got two. One that's one that's big, and then the other one is really small, at least in comparison. And I'm like, why is it two? I get tempted to just take some of my savings and just pay off the small one, just so that it's no longer a problem. But I don't know. But I'm also dealing with a lot of stuff at work, trying to make sure that I make money. Because, like, right now it's just a bad season for my market because I work in the automotive industry and it's just been really bad. A lot of it has to do with the economy. The amount of money that people are making is really not that great. So they can't really afford a lot. I'm not in sales. I hate sales, but that's all I go into is you know, that's the problem is that people don't have as much money. Debt's going out of control. So things like credit ratings and stuff like that are really bad. And it ultimately trickles into what they call fixed operations, which is everything that isn't sales. Um, because think about it, if they can barely afford to make the payments on their car, what makes you think they're going to pay to fix a rattling noise if it's not covered by warranty? They're like, oh yeah, well when you hit this bump, the strut mount started rattling, so yeah, it's going to cost $800 to fix. Um, and they're just gonna be like, I'll just deal with the rattle. Fuck it. Who cares? If it's not covered under warranty, and they're not gonna bother with their insurance because their insurance might be like, oh yeah, you got $1,000 deductible, so we're not even gonna pay for it. You know. And that's another thing is that insurance is just constantly getting more and more and more expensive, right? God, if I had to pay the amount that I paid for insurance, that I'm paying for insurance now, or car insurance now, uh, back in like 2010, I would just die. I'd be like, well, I'm riding a bike. It's getting worse. Everything's getting more expensive and people aren't really making any more money. And their debts are getting worse. So that pretty much goes down to like oh man. And again, it heavily affects me. Plus I work for a niche brand. So it's not like there's many of these cars out there and I'm just like, oh, okay. So people aren't knocking down my door for parts or service or anything. Oh, we get people every once in a while that will call and ask about something. We'll give them the information and I'm like, it costs that much? And we're like, unfortunately, yes. And they're like, can I just do this? And we're like, yeah, unfortunate. Unfortunate for us, we're like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to people. I'm not gonna manipulate them into spending money. I'll tell them, yep, you can do this as a cheaper alternative. Because what's the point? If they can't afford it anyway, I'm not losing a customer. I'm helping someone. And in a sense, I might be gaining a customer. I might not. They may just decide, man, everything's too expensive. I'm not coming here. But at the same time, if they feel like I helped them, then they might come back later and say, hey, you helped me. Because again, we had a guy had he kept calling us about a variety of things just because we helped him. I think we barely even I think he barely even got anything from us, but he did call us and get help, and it wasn't a case of like, oh, he was constantly annoying or bothering us or whatever for free advice or whatever. No, it's just a case of he needed some help, you know, with something of his, and so we helped him, right? Because I mean, that's kind of anything that's related to service, parts or service, um, anything involving the fixed operations about helping people. You could argue that's true about sales, but come on, come on. Anyone who's dealt with car salesmen know there's a thing about them. They're skeevy. Not all of them. Some of the car salesmen we got are cool people that do like to help people, but you know, the way I feel like it is sometimes helping people would be selling them a $5,000 car, not a $15,000 car. But that's what gets me. It's like also if you buy the $5,000 car, well, you better be ready to put a couple $1,000s in it because after 6 months the transmission goes out, or it ends up needing some major repairs because it's worn the hell out. You know. Oh, and there's the fact that it's difficult to even get a loan for that kind of money. A lot of banks, a lot of banks would rather you buy a new car than buy a used car. So it's a case of like, oh, you want to, you know, and again, a lot of it has to do with like the interest and all that other kind of stuff. Mm. Cause especially because I'm trying to make sure that we make money because I want to make sure our doors stay open. I don't want to wake up one week and have them be like, yeah, the business is shut down. Sorry. Oh, that one looks a little off. It's a little off, but it's not bad. So we got to keep making money. And so I got to balance that with all my other stuff. Especially want to get my debts down because that medical stuff really, oof, that caused me problems at the beginning of the year. Especially because it didn't really help anything. That made me the most mad. I mean, the only advantage I can say is that we ruled out stuff, but it becomes one of those weird situations of what do they call it? Diagnosis by exclusion or something like that. I don't know. But they're like, yeah, we diagnose you with this because we don't know what else it could be. Although it's not like they've tested for everything ever, but you know, again, at the same time, I don't know if I can afford some of those tests. Like getting that one was already expensive. I mean, of course, and they're knocking on my door to pay for the rest of it. I'm like, why is it so much? That's what drives me crazy. Is it's like it'd be one thing if it was like, you know, like it's already expensive, right? But then it turns around and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, the average cost for this procedure in the United States is this, but we're also going to charge you 3 times that. Mm. And I know a lot of that kind of goes into like healthcare and people want to talk about politics and all that kind of stuff, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, mm. I mean, the biggest thing I'm going to say is it annoys me that I'm forced to have to get insurance to have medical costs that are even considered reasonable. And even then, you have to still pay out of pocket one way or the other. Like you're still going to pay the copays, you still got to pay your deductible, you still got to do this, and you still got to do that, and you have to deal with the fact that you can only go to certain doctors. You know, I don't like it because like I've had other people having to deal with stuff like you know, talking about just getting dropped by their health care. You know, and it's utter horseshit. Like combine that with like the auto insurance thing. Auto insurance is going up, health insurance is going up. It's like, damn, what other insurance are they going to force us to get? Like, and I know you have to have auto insurance for like getting a loan. That's reasonable because they want to protect their investment. That makes sense. But then, it's also legally mandatory. I mean, essentially, they can charge whatever they want because it won't matter. You still have to buy it. It's cheaper than the ticket. It's cheaper than getting sued for the medical bills with the medical expenses going up. Mm. That's why I tell people I don't have insurance. I pay out of pocket for my group stuff, which is very expensive. But I'd rather do it because I can't find insurance without like paying. How much was that I quoted? I got quoted for one of the insurance companies that does take them, or that I can get with them. It was like $500 a month. I'm like, are you kidding me? I could buy a Mercedes for that, and that's still gonna have a deductible. It's still gonna have a copay. It's still gonna, all that. And it's annoying because like your work is only gonna have like one or two different companies that they get insurance through. So it's like, come on. That's one of the few good things about Teslas. At least they had their own. They had a great insurance plan. Yeah, I just hate the fact that you're kind of beholden to the insurance companies to whether or not, like, it's like their insurance. They're not a doctor, but they can override anything a doctor says. A doctor could say, "Yeah, this is probably a good idea," and they're like, "No, no, 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 it's not." And you're like, "What?" Like, I suspect I suspect I have allergies of different kinds, but I have no idea what they could be because no insurance company will pay for an allergy test. Because what I've been told, now maybe I'm wrong, maybe there are some that would be willing to, but what I've been told by doctors is that what they'll do is that they'll prescribe you medicine to treat allergies if you say you're having allergy problems. And if those medicines do work, then you don't need an allergy test. They found a solution. It doesn't matter what it is. We found a solution. You take this medicine, you're good. If it doesn't work, they prescribe you other medicine. And that's how the entire process works. Until they've exhausted all possible medications, they won't approve an allergy test. And that's kind of how it was with this medical stuff I dealt with earlier in the year. Is that they, when I try to ask solutions that don't involve like having to take medications, which I keep telling them was ineffective, it wasn't working, and they kept suggesting the same ones to me to the point that I was starting to get just visibly angry about it, because they weren't listening to me, which is like, you're a doctor. You need to listen to your patient. You can't diagnose someone you don't listen to. Like, are you hoping to diagnose me through uh, telepathy? And that's because the way healthcare goes with stuff like that is making a suggestion, like, or any kind of treatment plan that involves lifestyle change. They don't want to do that. They would rather give you they would rather give you medication than any kind of lifestyle change. So it's like, yeah, we could find out what you're allergic to so that you could then avoid it, or we could give you this medicine. And they're going to go for the medicine every time. And I'm not sure why that is. And my panic looking is because I don't know where I put my needle. There it is. See, it's got a magnet on it. It's great. Yeah, I think I don't want to be the well, they're just trying to sell you pills and whatever else, but I think because it's easier to get people to take medication than it is to change their lifestyle. Like, well, I'm not sure what it's like, but I would say that telling somebody, yeah, the thing that you've been doing for however many years in your life, yeah, you can't do that anymore because it's causing this problem. You now have to do something different, and they don't. And a lot of people don't want to do that because that's difficult. And so they're like, okay, well then just take this medicine. Oh, well that's easy. They can take a pill every day. And if they forget to take it one day, oh, they're just miserable for that day, and then they take it the next day or whatever. And that kind of goes into similar to what I was saying about the social media stuff, where where there's a lot of that sort of same thing, where it's not necessarily easier to live ineffectively, but it ends up being the way that a lot of people go, you know. And I'm not against medication in any sense, right? Because there's a lot of medication that's necessary and helps. Like my bipolar medication helps that, not the other stuff. I actually recently seen a commercial for some bipolar medication, but the side effects sound insane. They're like, you know, if you're taking opioids, you have opioid withdrawal, or it could cause a serious condition or something. Talking about increased risk of death, and I'm like, what? No, I'll take the bipolar, thank you. Like it had all these crazy sounding side effects, and it was a creepy, weird commercial because it kept having everybody's face in the camera, and I'm like, no, I can't even take the other stuff they prescribe people. Can't remember what it's called, Latuda or something. I take lithium. It's cheap and it works, so I'm fine with it. See something like that because the bipolar thing is a chemical imbalance, and it really helps. It helps like sort of even out the mood swings and stuff. Whereas for the other things, sure, I could take medicine or do this, that, and the other, because that's one thing is that being bipolar and then having other things, I'll sometimes have them try to prescribe me depression medication. And I tell them, please do not prescribe me depression medication under any circumstances. I don't need depression medication. I'm not depressed. I'm bipolar. Because, like, I've had issues with sleeping before, and one of my goals is to try to find an effective sleeping medication I could take every once in a while. Because I don't need it every night. I just need something I can take when I know I'm going to have trouble sleeping, or if I wake up too early and I know I'm going to have trouble going back to sleep, you know, because it happens from time to time. But then I had a period where the guys I kept going to, they kept trying to prescribe me different high level depression meds. Like, and I'm like, I'm not gonna take this. This is like a extremely high level depression med that has extremely powerful withdrawal symptoms. I'm not going to do that because what they'll tell you to do is to take it every night, right? They're like, "Oh, just take one every night." And it's like, I don't need something every night. I need something that will knock me out if I can't sleep. Something that I don't have to take regularly, but not something that's insanely strong, because I'm not about to sit here and pop pills to go to sleep. I just need a little something to help make it easier for me to fall asleep. Because I was taking one, and then for some reason they decided to switch me to something else. I tried this other one, it didn't work, and I was like, "This isn't working. Can I go back to the other one?" And they're like, "Oh, we'll try this one." Because they tried to add, cause they tried to basically, I guess, assess that maybe I was depressed or something. I was like, "Guys, I'm upset because I'm having trouble sleeping. The sleep is affecting my mood. I have bipolar, meaning I can have mood swings. Let's fix the sleep first, then worry about the depression." I can't believe I'm having to tell this to people whose job it is to be doctors. It's stuff like that that really upsets me about the medical thing when you're having to when it feels like you're having to teach them about how stuff works. It's like, guys, it's simple. Just give me the medicine that I know works. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong, but they never told me why they took me off of it, so like, if you're not willing to explain to me the reasons why you make a decision on something, then I'm not interested in your reasons for wanting to do so because I'm not going to do it. Sorry. I've got a good mind for science because I did excellent in biology and stuff like that. And heck, when I was in college, I didn't take the the science classes necessary for degree for the required ones. I took the high level ones because I was good at science. What's the point in taking the low level stuff when you can do just fine in the higher level ones? So instead of taking like the basic anatomy and physiology, I took the high level anatomy. Actually, a lot of people ask me about that. They're like, "You going for like you pre med or something like that?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "So why are you in this one?" It's like, "Because I'm good at science." There's no point in taking it. There's no point in taking the lower level class when you can just learn more. I'm glad I'm not in college anymore though. School is really frustrating. I'd rather learn at my own pace. Because, like, a lot of times you can just take the books, read through the books and, related information, stuff like that, and get a lot of the information. Computer science is like that too, which is nothing wrong with it because it's always good to have an instructor to help you parse out things and to get your mistakes and all that kind of stuff. But also at the same time, but it's also since college is so damn expensive. Like hell, I wouldn't mind taking like a single class or something like that, but it still costs a lot, and you have to have a lot of time. I definitely can't do online classes. I tried that once, didn't work out. I did learn a lot of good stuff though, but I couldn't dedicate myself properly, which is 100% my fault, admittedly. And there's probably a lot of other distractions and stuff in my life that affected it. You know, probably if it was a proper classroom setting, I probably would have done a lot better, but I just wasn't in the place. Because hell, the only reason I'm in the automotive industry is all self-taught because it's mostly a case of like just learning how things work. I'm learning that it's incredibly hot in here. Man, I'm making great progress here. I mean, just look at that. Remember, I started with just this part. I don't think I can finish it today, but I probably can. I will say this, I will not include the framing it as part of the live stream. I'm not very good at framing the stuff. I typically do my own framing, but not always. So, of course, one of the things is that because one of them's intended to go to Daniel, I'm pretty sure that the situation that's going on with him will probably affect his ability to get a package. But my goal is instead to like send it to old Paul and have him relay everything. Because that would be much better. Because again, as I tell people all the time, is that as much as I love to do various things for various people, I also have zero interest in getting people's addresses because as I'm still essentially a stranger on the internet. I try to be mindful of the concept of parasocial relationships because, you know, yeah, I can have been a part of, been a part of their audience and then donated and then hung out with them and then done all this kind of stuff for years, right? That doesn't necessarily mean we have the same kind of interpersonal relationship as people who are actually friends, right? Like personal friends. And again, I've got friends I've met online that we have uh, really dedicated relationship. Um, but just but just because of that, it's still important to be mindful and to be wary. Because I think that's how a lot of that stuff with like, people on Twitch get kind of weird. I'm gonna put my leg up. Here we go. Yeah, people on Twitch sometimes do get kind of weird. That might be a bit judgmental, but still, it's important to keep the distinction between like regular friends and I don't know. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but what I'm saying is just be mindful of the boundaries that may be there that you don't know, and I try to put that as a boundary. I don't think they're stupid, and I don't think they would give out their address to somebody that they thought would be a bad person, but I don't know. I always like to err on the side of caution and let people know that they're not obligated uh, to in these cases, they're not obligated to my feelings, I guess you could say. So they don't have to give me their address, right? They could say, "Oh, I don't feel comfortable with that," and I'm like, "Okay," because like I did have one I made for somebody that I liked one time, their content, and I was like, I didn't have anything other to do, so I thought of making this, and I thought it'd be really cool. If you'd like it, I could send it to you. And they're like, it's like, but I would prefer you to give me a PO box or something. I'm like, yeah, sure. And they never got back to me. And so I was like, oh, that sucks because I still have it. And I was like, oh well. I shrugged my shoulders and said, I'll keep it then because there's nothing wrong with that. If they didn't feel comfortable, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the energy, or maybe they forgot. Who cares? I'm not, you know, I'm not going to say that they have any kind of obligation in that regard. I just like cross stitching and I like finding new projects to do. I also like forgetting about my old projects and then not coming back to them until way later. I don't like to do that, but I'm going to say I like to do that. I I do got to finish the Deagle one. That is one I've got to finish so I can frame it because it looks great. But then I've also got to finish the triple triad. I've got to finish. I've got to keep. I'm working on a way to. So one of the things I'm working on is how I could possibly translate the sprites of the triple triad cards onto a cross stitch within a reasonable size, right? And that size, because again, it comes from the sprites from the PlayStation 1. This is not the remaster versions because those are like super high resolution in comparison anyway. But they're still pretty high res because they're 32-bit sprites, right? And again, it doesn't just use, it uses pixels, but they're also sort of arrayed in like a 7x9. So I mean, as you can see here, like here's a great example. See, just that section alone, that little rectangle is 5x4. So, and if you look at that, that's like 4x7, you know. So a single pixel, whatever you want to call it, that's on those is huge. You know, this isn't, this isn't super huge fabric and this isn't super small fabric. It's like right there in the middle. So doing a single pixel is enormous, right? But then you look at the characters, the letters, numbers that make up the score on them, and each of those are made up of like, I think like a 7x9 also, something like that. So a single number ends up being enormous on regular sized fabric. So the key thing is trying to figure out how to scale it without losing too much of the scale. Because if I just scale it pixel to pixel, it's going to come out really square shaped instead of rectangle shaped. And that would skew the scale heavily. Because again, 7x9 is like 0.77. So, the width is 0.77 of the height. So that's a huge difference. It's essentially a 1/4 difference, 25%. It would be 25% wider than it's supposed to be, and it would look really weird. Now, maybe not. Maybe someone would be like, oh, that's cool anyway. Who cares? But it bothers me, so that's why. I'm trying to experiment with something where I scale it down from 3x4, because I'm working on, I think I showed it last time, the experiment where I'm scaling it down to 3x4, which looks pretty good, but it's still also really large. Maybe if I went down to like 32, 32 count Ida fabric, it might make it more reasonable, but I don't know yet. I don't think it would be within the right physical dimensions that I'd be looking for. 6, 7. Okay. See, I always try to double check my counts because if I just assume my count, I'm often going to get it wrong. Now, for a while, I thought of a possibility of doing physical dimensions, this actual size of a triple triad card. See? And you put it next to this for scale, you see that does not give you many stitches on a fabric like this. So what I'd be trying to do is see how I can manage that, how I can manage that scale. Trying to combine the proper scale with reasonable size. Because again, if I did it in like size 14 fabric as it is with the 7x9s, it would be the size of a portrait, like or not like a portrait, but like a painting. It would be huge. And look, it would look amazing, but it would be terrible. Because see, I have a few ideas on on what I can do with that, right? But first, I have to figure out the card size, how to put the numbers on there, and come out with a pattern for the border. Because I've got a pattern for the numbers that I've got set. So that's not a problem. What I have to do next is the yeah. What I have to do next is the well. I'm still stitching it out because I want to see how it looks with those colors and to see if I think it needs to change or anything. But then I need to work on the border, which there are like four different borders, I think. There's the regular cards. I think there's the gold ones. I think there's the boss cards, and then there's the character cards. I don't know. There's a couple of borders, and I have to work all of them out. So that's going to be a big project to try to get under control. Because I'm because the one thing I'm experimenting with, like doing half stitches, like by doing actually 1.5 by 2 instead of 3 by 4, which is okay, but it also looks really weird. So I might. The fuck was that? Whatever. So I might have to try it with like more strands to see because it does look because like the good thing about this, you see, from your like if I get really close to it where you can actually see it, you know, come on, is it actually trying to focus? I don't think so. Yeah, but what are you trying to do, phone? Shut up. Anyway, I think I accidentally made my phone do something. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Uh, so you can see the X's on it, right? You can clearly see the X's, but when you look at it from farther away, it still looks filled in, right? And of course, the tighter fabric, the smaller count fabric or higher count, I should say, the higher count fabric you use, the tighter they look. You know, like this, they look decently loose. But you can look from here and you say that looks pretty good, right? It looks like a cross stitch. It doesn't look like just an image, right? But it has the right balance. But that's what I'm trying to figure out is how I can get that with a proper scale and a proper size. Because again, the scaling thing I'm trying to do, I don't think it works yet. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Very nice. Of course, my another idea is instead of doing like larger stitches, doing even smaller ones. Like doing quarter stitches. Because technically you could fit 4 X's in one of these squares, but it would be very tiny unless you used larger fabric. So that's kind of the problem that I get is that, you know, you try to go too small with it and then you really need larger fabric. But then you have larger fabric and then it brings up the dimensions larger. So then you end up with the same issue. So what I really need to do is to get like a bunch of different fabric sizes. Get size 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 24, 32, and then try different ideas on them all and see what looks best and has the best dimensions. because I feel like if I can get it the size of like a large card, like rather than like not a super tiny, it's not tiny, but not like a standard size card, but like more of a large card, then it would work. Because the idea of having it like regular card size is a little too extreme, just because of the way they make it. But it's really fun because it does involve a lot of effort, a lot of thought, a lot of experimentation, just to see what's possible and how I would implement it. I've also considered doing some Fortnite streaming, but I don't know. I think that's super common. I don't know how many people would actually watch, but I've considered it at least. It could be, Fortnite's fun. Where's my? Oh, it's my pouch right here. Oy. But I've got another project that I haven't done any more on. So I'll show the two examples, right? That example that obviously I haven't finished, but you see I've got a lot of progress on it. And this example, which as you can see I've got a lot less on it, but if if you look closely, you can see how the stitches are kind of wide, and that's because I'm doing 1.5 wide, but then 1 stitch tall, so that it's basically made of 2 wide rectangle stitches, so that it still sort of has density to it. And it looks okay. I think if I use thicker, like if I use, excuse me, if I use 3 strand, it might actually end up looking pretty decent. It just gives it a really odd look to me because I'm used to the standard stitches. So, and yes, I keep Uno reverse cards with me at all times. I have them in my phone case too. I keep that thing on me, man. So yeah, again, it's a lot of experimentation because you see, even with even with this change in scale, see, because this is 16 count, I believe. This is definitely 18 count. Notice how, yes, this is smaller, but not really by a whole lot. It's only about 3/4 smaller. And again, oh, no, not my cards. Again, compare them to the size of a physical card. I mean, that 9 is about 2/3 the size of this card alone. And then this one is just under half compared to a single digit. So you see is that scaling is precarious. See, this is the other one I've started on. You see I've started on the bottom of the symbol so that I can sort of go up from there. And then etc. etc. So I definitely feel like I should get them done by Christmas. And then it could essentially be, oh, a Christmas thing, right? Especially with the small ones, they could be ornaments actually if someone was so inclined. I mean, hell, look how much I've got done today, and I still have 1.5 hours worth of streaming I'm willing to do. I want to give myself 30 minutes because it'll probably take me 10 minutes to get ready and then some time to get there. And hopefully all that goes well. And then afterwards, I have stuff I've got to do that's probably going to keep me out all night. So if I streamed, it would be later on at night. Again, as I was saying earlier about streaming ideas, I've got a lot of streaming ideas. First off, I found some really cool games that I really want to try. There's this one game that streamer Alpha Koa was watching in the horror showcase from Steam, and she described it as being Silent Hill combined with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I'm like, that is like the perfect description for it because that's exactly what it looks like, right? and I really want to try it because it looks super cool. Um, it has a demo. It hasn't released yet, but I definitely want to try it. There's a hair on here. Here we go. I feel a small urge. It's not big, but I feel a small urge to play more Resident Evil 3 randomizers. Like I said, I'm tempted to play Fortnite. What else? I do want to play more Elisa. I want to go back to practicing my speed run. Things like that. But I'm also not necessarily interested in streaming every single day. Streaming does take a lot of work. And I've got videos that I need to edit. I've got one I'm in the progress of editing right now, but I felt like I needed to do this more so than edit that. Plus, it's not going to be a super complex edit, but it's going to require some effort to try to get everything exactly the way I want it. And then again, I have a few other edits that I want to get into, and then I've got some backdated ones. I say backdated, but I've got a few things that I need to work on. I think what I'm going to do, because I have an idea for Phantasmagoria 2 where Paul sees his computer, he's being harassed by the Hecatomb, and he's crying. I think I should edit that as a template. Like where it's got the music and everything. Um, or maybe not music, but where the computer screen is instead replaced by either a green screen or blank screen or something like that. That way it can be used as a template. That actually reminds me. I need to check on something. Not right now, but I need to write it down. What the hell? I used to have pins here like crazy. Here we go. I need to see if there's a green screen for Gordon Cole Reacts. Because those green screens are super useful to different people. If there's no green screen for it, there should be. That way people can use it without having to do the masking themselves. But I have another Reacts I want to do with that as well. See, again, I have ideas left and right. The problem is my computer at work does not have a good graphics card, nor do I have my software on that. So I've got to see about how I can get my editing software onto that, so I can then sometimes edit my downtime. My work doesn't always have downtime, but sometimes it does, especially on the weekend. I don't know why we stay open so late on the weekend, but we do. Luckily, I have every other Saturday off, but it's still frustrating the days I have to be there and we're not doing anything. I don't understand why they want to keep us, why they won't change it. Because if they start giving, because if they give us trouble about because if they decide to give us trouble about our staffing, uh, and other stuff like that, well, my response is going to be an angry, well, if we weren't making enough money, then why do you keep us open so late? Like, there's no point in keeping us all day Saturday for no reason if we aren't making money. But now it's so bad that you want to start talking about reducing staffing. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice landing. But then again, working so many jobs are like 90% politics anyway. And it's frustrating. Like, for as utilitarian as they try to claim that they are, they're not. It's still just it's still equally as abstract and as anything else. Because as much as they'll say, hey, we're just trying to do, they might say something like, well, we're just trying to do what's best for the company or something. It's like, no, you're not, because you hired this person even though they weren't really qualified for it because they knew the right people or something. Oh, because they were the friend of somebody in one of the departments, something like that. And you're like, it's not about you're not being pragmatic when it comes to this thing. So are you really that pragmatic? Jobs though. Damn. I wish there was more people here so that people could bring up topics rather than me rambling. Because again, as people notice, I don't like to necessarily talk about like politics and other stuff like that. I usually will dip into them a little bit, like within reason. But it's the problem is because when you get too deep into it, people will get angry and irrational and unreasonable, and it's like come on, guys. We are all entitled to our beliefs, okay? You know, because I have friends of all different kinds of beliefs, and part of the reason why is because I give them the right to have that belief. When I worked at not when I worked at where I work at, we had a guy that worked there, and he was a little far out there. Um, but I didn't judge him for his beliefs. If he wanted to talk about them, I'd listen. I might say that I don't agree with that, but I'm not going to sit there and say that means you're wrong. I'm saying that I don't agree with that for these reasons. And if you want to tell me your reasons why you believe it, I'm willing to listen. I'm not going to invalidate you. That was the problems with one of our other employees, that him and this other employee would get into it all the time about stuff like that. And it's like, bro, if you guys can't talk about, now they were both stubborn. It's not just one of their fault, but they were both stubborn as hell. But it's like, if neither of you can talk about this without getting weird, then you just shouldn't talk about it. And he felt comfortable talking to me about things that the other person might not necessarily agree with. And I was like, well, okay, that's cool, I guess. Because there's some things we did agree on, some things we didn't agree on, you know? And it was never anything like hateful or caustic or anything like that. It was never anything that made you go, dude, what the fuck? But, you know, some people don't necessarily agree with certain things, and that's cool. Of course, I usually won't talk sports with people because I don't really care much for sports, but I'm not going to also tell them that sports is stupid. I'd be like, I don't really keep up with sports, so I don't know. How sometimes I sit there and listen to them because it's like, hey, nothing wrong with listening to something and then possibly learning something. Or maybe I'll find something I like about it. That's what I tell people, is that part of growing up does involve doing stuff that you don't like. Like for example, I pretty much have to drink black coffee for my digestive issues. And guess what? I hate black coffee. Don't get me wrong, I found some coffee that's good to drink where I can tolerate it, but if I had to quit it tomorrow, I would take the I would take the carafe for my coffee maker at work and I would bust it against the ground. I would not care in the least. It only cost me like $15 too, so it don't matter. It's not that important to me. I'd rather not break something I paid for, but what I'm saying is that I guess I don't hate it that much. I just wouldn't care is what I'm saying. If I could. But I have to use it to help maintain my gastro stuff, enzymes, whatever. It works at least. It works at maintaining stuff. Oy. Look at that. Could I do it? Could I finish it in an hour and 15 minutes? Maybe. Of course, if I have to do another one of these, that's not really a bad thing, but I would have to have it spill over into another project. That would be pretty cool. Do another project, yeah. I could actually show you some of the difficulties on dealing with older patterns because older patterns can be very intricate in how they want you to stitch or how they notate their stuff. It's there's definitely a change in certain things, right? It's not necessarily bad, but I do feel like older cross stitching patterns and things like that tends to mix with embroidery, with like standard embroidery, where it has a little bit of free form in it, I guess you could say. I don't know what you would call that because I don't do embroidery. I do, well, this is a form of embroidery, but this is, cross stitch. So I do this. I don't do embroidery because I don't feel like I could do it very well. I don't have a steady hand, and it would end up being a mess. I'm sure if I practiced, I could probably get good at it, but I also don't like embroidery as much as I like cross stitch. Cross stitch is cooler. It's way cooler, dog. Oh, look at that. Look how close we are. Plus, I feel like the logo part of it actually takes less time than the word part of it. So let's see, how many more section rows do I have to do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're literally 7 of these rows before being finished. See, that's not that bad. Now, of course, it'll get these first 2 rows were the longest of the rows. So it's going to so it gets easier and easier the longer I do it. And I gotta look at it again. I gotta skip one. But it could be possible to finish today. But I need to set up a be right back screen too. Because the fact that I don't have one is kind of a problem. In fact, let's see. Let's try adding a window capture. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. No, not Firefox. That works. Let's go with new a new Firefox tab. How about that? No, that doesn't work. I don't know. How can I set this up? Hmm. That won't work with Firefox because of what I have to pull up. What if there's a... Hmm. Okay, I have an idea. Okay. What is it? What if there's a... What? Oh, God, I hate Reddit sometimes. Because, okay, so I'm like, maybe I'll just put a vaporwave thing, right? It just says be right back, right? And then maybe like play some music or something like that. And and then what makes it really stupid, right? Okay, I'm gonna move my camera a little bit. Don't look at my butt. Ah, you looked. You looked. So let's open this. Let's edit this actually. Edit. We just do it with a little bit of paint. Here we go. I should be able to like. Hold on. Cancel. Okay. Hold on. Let's go pre-screen. Oh wait, yeah, I can add it here. Window capture. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll leave it like that for right now. So we'll do it like this. Put it right here. Be like, be right back. And why is that the font? Holy crap. Did I use that for something? What the hell? What a weird font. Let's make it huge. And let's find a better font, shall we? Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Kind of Art Deco. We'll bold it. No, that looks stupid. We'll make it white. It's a little off center, unfortunately. We'll file save as desktop. Just call it BRB. How about that BRB? Anyway, what I was saying is I was searching vaporwave, right, to find a like vaporwave image that could be used, and it straight up um one of the like the third option. I'm sorry, I'm just a little flabbergasted, right? So, okay, sorry. I'm just kind of little. Well, that's not working. Let's delete that then. Shit. Okay, hold on. Yeah. Wait, I can just pick image and just do it that way. Okay. So, I'm sorry. My brain is not working. I could just do that. And then just do that. Oh, it fits perfectly. And then Speakers, yeah. And then let's see if I can get some nice vaporwave going on or something that's open source, public domain, whatever. Something that matches well enough. No copyright synthwave music. Here we go. Hope that's not too loud or anything. Okay, cool. Alright. Alright, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run this and I'll be right back. And I'll tell you the funny Reddit thing when I get back. good that I hold to set this up. Set up a be right back screen. I'll probably have to do some adjustments, but I needed one anyway. So mute that. Boom. Hello. I've been needing a be right back screen, so it's good that I decided that it came up. So yep. Because again, like I said, I'm doing my laundry and doing other things like that, trying to be prepared. Oh yeah, the Reddit thing. So I searched vaporwave, right? Um, so I could have something, you know, so I could have something for background because vaporwave looks pretty good. I was like, yeah, let's do some vaporwave, right? It's a good aesthetic. And like the third option or the third thing that it found on the search was a post from Reddit asking why vaporwave attracted so many members of the alt-right. And I was like, what in the hell is this? See what I mean about Reddit? I'm like, I've never even heard of that. Is that a thing? So they're like what? I just don't understand, I guess. Like I want to know what they experienced to have them feel this way. That's what I'm curious about. Like I don't want to invalidate their experience. I want to know what led them to this question. I mean, I guess I could click the thread and read it, but I also don't necessarily know if that would be productive. It's better just to kind of laugh and then brush it off because it's that kind of thing that kind of gets me about why searching is really bad. It's like, you would think that one of the first things that would come up would be like Wikipedia talking about it, or maybe a YouTube video that has vaporwave stuff or images or a database or something. But no, it's Reddit, and it's a post that inane. I guess I said I didn't want to invalidate them, but yeah, it's a little goofy. So of course that's part of the problem because Reddit, I don't think they've yet done it, but they're eventually going to be publicly, or maybe not publicly traded, but they're going to basically, have shareholders, right? And of course that I feel like is always a problem for any like website because then it's going to become 100% about making more money for the shareholders. I mean, Reddit's already really bad. It's got its algorithms. It's got its ads all over the place, and it definitely has a bot problem. I know that. Like that's one of the things I say I don't like about Reddit because you have a post history. People will straight up follow you and they will straight up harass you either in new threads or based on your post history. And it's like, are you serious? Like, yeah, I complained about this one thing over here. What the hell does that have to do with this? Like, I'm allowed to have more than one aspect of my existence, okay? Like, what are you doing? Why do this? Why harass people based on their post history? Now, I will admit, I do look. Um, and that's one of the things that it encourages you. I feel like it encourages you to do so. Like, why else would a post history be public? Why do you need to know what else people are posting on? Now, I know that it's basically an aspect of forums. How forums in the past, you could go to someone's account and see where they've been posting, right? But forums also worked a lot differently. Reddit is closer to Twitter than You know, Reddit is like if you combine Twitter with a forum. And I think that's part of the problem. I feel like a forum had enough gatekeeping that it was easy enough to keep bots and trolls and things like that down, you know. Granted, just like Reddit, you have problems with people who become power hungry and become jerks, but still. I feel like forums work better. I mean, again, you have forums like something awful where you had to pay to be able to get into it, and that's probably a better solution ultimately. Be like, hey, for for $1 you can have a permanent account to this thing, and that's one of the things I feel like is actually a good system. Some people disagreed with Twitter charging money for the blue check mark, but I think it's a good system because it's like, well, if you want to be official, right, then you pay the money. Otherwise, don't. I mean, you don't have to pay for it. Don't pay for it then if you don't like it. But overall, but then again, he's probably going to eventually have the entire thing be subscription based because now you can't like read comments and stuff like that without an account. So I think that's probably what he's going towards is to restrict the whole thing with money because that's one thing that bots cannot do is they can do a lot of stuff, but they cannot pay money because obviously, why would you have them pay money, right? If a bot had unlimited control of somebody's wallet, that would end up very badly. But again, a lot of it's annoying because this kind of goes to what like a YouTuber that I watch was talking about this whole drama involving Sniper Wolf and Jack's films, where she doxed him and YouTube wasn't doing anything about it. I'm not sure if they have now. I haven't kept up with it, but it was a case of like you have somebody like, are you not doing anything about it because she's such a large channel? Well, that actually makes it way worse because she has millions of people that watch her stuff. So when she doxes it, she has millions of people who are being exposed to this that may decide to do something horrible. I mean, especially if they're like rabid fans anyway. They may see that the guy, how Jack's films had criticized her, they may see that as like a slight against her and that it needs to be punished. Like, this, you don't dox people, okay? And the larger you are, the worse it is. And it makes you feel like that, oh, that the people with the most money and power, they can break your rules all day long. But if I dare to post a video with a snippet from a song, then that video must get banned, even though I've got less than 200 subscribers. It's like, why? You think people are coming to look at my memes so that they can listen to that instead of buying the song or something? I don't know. But what I was saying is the problem with these corporatized websites, with Twitter, with YouTube, with Reddit, all these, is that they want to be the biggest. They want to be number one, right? They want to be the number one provider in the world, not just the United States, not just the continent, but the entire world, right? However, they don't want to spend the time, money, and effort to be responsible for what all that entails. And that's where the problem comes in. Because they have plenty of time, money, and effort, but they don't want to spend that because the goal is to exponentially increase their earnings, right? And because again, that's part of why they start engaging in unethical behaviors and stuff like that is because they're like, well, we've been making a revenue or we've been making profits of like 2 billion, but if we push out our competition, we could make 5 billion. All right. Instead of saying, let's provide a better product, they say, let's make sure that we're the only product. And, they don't want to do what's necessary. So instead of having so even if it's a service that you pay for with these, you know, they don't have customer service. Like even Walmart has customer service. You can call in the customer service line, give your complaint, request, whatever, and then they will try to help you. Actually, I'll say that the customer service hotline of Walmart is really good. The customer service in store sucks, but the customer service hotline is really good. But that's the thing, like YouTube wants to be the world's largest video provider online, right? They do. They want to be the world's largest video provider. However, they also ow, they also don't want to do the effort. So you have things like all these copyright claims. That's why they're all done by machines, by bots and stuff. Because to have a person review every individual video ever posted would be expensive and time consuming. We couldn't possibly do that. But then people get problems where the videos get copyright flagged when they shouldn't, either because of a mistake or because it's well within fair use. So instead, what they do is they make it overly restrictive and then give you the ability to appeal it. But here's the thing is that they really have no reason to put much effort into it other than just saying, yeah, the appeal is denied. Sometimes they will work with you. And I have had an appeal saying that my content was not appropriate for something for something about the video. And then I was like, recheck it, guys. And they were like, hey, it turns out you were right. Thanks, idiots. Um, but the truth of the matter is that YouTube is part of Google. And so, stretch my neck a little. And so the problem is that if you get copyright flagged because of some aspect of your video, you're doing like movie reviews and that's why so many movie reviews now use maybe snippets and screenshots. Because if they use even 2 seconds of video, they might get flagged. And the thing is, especially if you want your content to be monetized, right? And they decide to flag it, and it gets demonetized or whatever. Well, you spend a lot of effort on that. You know, you're not ripping them off. You're not taking their money from them. You're not doing anything. You're not doing anything that they you're not doing anything that costs anybody any money except you. But even if you appeal it, a lot of times they're going to still deny that appeal. And the only possible way that you could get it fixed is getting yourself someone that has passed the bar exam, that is to say, a lawyer. And good luck that your rinky dink lawyer is going to somehow beat Google. And that's part of the problem. That's why it's something that essentially has to come from like the legislators, the legislation, because unless someone was willing to put in a class action lawsuit, you know, we basically have no recourse, you know, and it sucks because we should have the right to express ourselves, to say, hey, I made this and I want to make money off of it, or I made this and I want it to be able to be viewed. I want people to be able to comment on it and all that. Hell, I had that goofy video I made of Lucy, where I was like doing all the funny stuff, and it got flagged. Not for the I Love Lucy stuff. Not for even the music I used specifically, but because that music remixes somebody else's song, I got flagged for that other song that it was being remixed from. Very weird. And it's just stuff like that, right? And especially because they will punish you for I mean, again, you get copyright strikes. What'll happen is they can They can't. You get too many, they can ban your channel completely, right? And that's what annoys me, right? Because like, what was it? Yeah. Luckily, it doesn't affect anything on the video, but still, it's annoying, right? Because they could choose to block it in certain countries. They could choose to block it from commenting, and they can later on come back and say, hold up, we've decided that this violates the copyright, so we are going to delete the video, you know? And again, that's a huge problem to me. You know, you don't get, you don't get the kind of you don't get any recourse. I don't like it. And I'm just like, how can we how can we do something about this? I'm trying to think what I was trying to say. Wow, really? Huh. That short I got like close to 50% dislikes. That's crazy. Oh well. People didn't like it. I don't care. But that's okay because people are going to dislike your content sometimes. Let's see. I just don't like how restricted they are. I mean, Twitch is also kind of restrictive too, admittedly. Hmm. And I know people have complained about it in the past. It's like, and I get that some of it has to do with this, that, and the other. There's a lot of stuff they have to deal with in terms of producing content and things like that. Like you don't want parents to get mad at you. You don't want to be seen as peddling certain types of content. You know, I missed again. Okay. You don't want to infringe on copyrights. You don't want to do this, that, and the other. There's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that you have to deal with. But that's the thing, is that you want to be the largest. You advertised, right? You try to restrict people. You know, you try to do this, that, and the other. It's like, then if you want to be the best, you want to be the biggest, then start providing a better product. If you don't want to be the biggest, then why are you advertising? Why are you trying to convince? Why? Why? You know? I mean, the answer is short, it's money. But it's like I couldn't afford to have 15 kids. It would make my life a living hell. So you know what I don't do? I don't go and knock up 15 women. It's that simple. But it would be like if I went around and knocked up 15 women and then I'm like, oh man, oh, it's so difficult to take care of 15 children. And then I go and try to knock up another one. It's like, well, you're your own enemy, dog. How about stop it? I mean, just like with TikTok, you get advertisements for TikTok on YouTube, and it's like, I'm not interested. Could you please stop advertising TikTok to me? I haven't used TikTok, so I don't know any of the complaints about it, but I'm just not interested in it. So look at that. Hmm. I got about 45 more minutes, although I may cut it slightly before one. Uh, because now that I recall, they recommend to be there 15 minutes early. So I don't think traffic would be bad, but still. Hmm. Yeah, at least get to, so I can at least get to a good stopping place. And then I can just plan out because for next week. Maybe sooner, maybe not. I don't know. I want to stick to doing this particular stream once per week and then maybe other streams throughout the week. Let me check something real quick. See, why is says what gets me is why is the Google Assistant active? I don't understand because I have it turned off. I don't like Google Assistant. It doesn't work very well. I mean, I don't like Siri or nothing like that either. Like if it actually had like good vocal features, I would use it, but it doesn't. Like, oh, you can tell it to open YouTube, but you really can't tell it to do much else. Like, well, what's the point? Now, maybe they've updated it since then, but I just don't like it because you don't really get that many hands-free features. You still pretty much have to use your hands. It's just you can skip some steps. Like you can say, call Jimmy, and then and then, or you can, like, let's say you need to call a 1-800 number, right? You call 1-800 and then it's like, press 1 to blank. You can't tell it to press 1. It's not going to do that. You have to then stop and physically press 1. Like I'm really curious as to what disabled people do with cell phones. Like do they have like I tried to do a little research, but I was like, do they have like special cell phones or something like that? Like special models that have completely hands-free? Because I mean, I imagine someone who's a quadriplegic wants a cell phone. I mean, they can't say, "Oh, sorry, if you ain't got hands, can't use it." Sorry. You know, I imagine that there is some sort of feature for people who would need it. Because again, I have problems like my joints in my hands and stuff like that, and using the phone too long makes them hurt. But I pretty much have to use my hands because the Google features are terrible, and I think Siri's pretty is not that great either. And it's annoying because if you say the wrong thing, it'll just activate randomly, and you're like, I didn't tell you to activate. Like I say cool, like if I say cool, like sometimes I'll say cool cool and it thinks I'm saying Google. I can get how they sound similar, but it's like really you can't tell that I'm saying cool and not Google. Oof, you know? Hell, I don't even Hey, what's up? How's it going? Not much, just trying to get to a good stopping point on this one cuz luckily I'm not too far away from being done cuz I just got to give myself plenty of time for when I leave. which I hate too, because I'm like, man, I could probably finish today if I didn't have that thing to do, unfortunately. But it's only on Sunday, and Sunday's the only day that I really have way off. Who knows? Is that? Oh, yeah. So, how's it going today? Doing all right? I'm mostly all right, just got a lot of stuff I've got to do. And because I didn't stream with this last week, I wanted to do it today. But I'm thinking, especially if I can get home early enough, I can go ahead and do streaming in the evening. Because I do want to play more Lisa and other things. Just gotta get the energy to game up, you know? I don't know why I'm out of gaming energy, but I just am. Look at that, look at that. It's coming together so well, actually. One thing that bothers me is a lot of the stitches at the bottom are kind of wonky. But it's the only downside is that with all this chaos that's going on with Daniel, it's also making it hard for it's also making it hard for Daniel and Spoonie to game or him to join them for stuff. I mean, I love the fact that he's kind of getting active on the channel and that the channel is pushing uh like more to like have guests and stuff like that. Because the biggest problem with I'll say this is that Paul does need to get his gamer his gamer instincts, maybe. He needs to get his feet wet. He's playing a lot of adventure games, which is good. And playing the Stanley Parable also helps. And he actually did pretty good with playing Little Nightmares. I'll say that. But we've still got to slowly like work him into gaming. I mean, he beat those games. So, oh, and Firewatch too. So he's slowly learning it, right? He's developing these skills. So what we have to do is keep pushing him until he's an MLG pro, hardcore, true gamer, or at least till he can play some other interesting games. Excuse me. I would love to see him. Again, I still keep pushing the idea, and I hope enough people can push the idea to get them interested in doing it, of them playing Among Us, because I think that would be really cool. Like that would be awesome to see the CwC stream with Tori, Daniel, Spoonie, and Paul, and then maybe some other people, possibly, you know, fans and stuff like that, playing Among Us. That would be legendary. They could connect through Discord or something like that. Discord chat, instead of chatting in game. Have it be an entire private session and things. It would be super interesting. I think, anyway. It would take a lot of effort to set up, but I think it'd be worth it. Let's see. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. Because, again, once I get to a good stopping point, I'm going to go ahead and stop and probably cut it a little bit early. just to make sure I have enough time to do what I gotta do. See, if I had started at 9, see, I woke up closer to 7 and stuff like that, so I could have possibly gotten up if I wasn't so tired. I could have gotten up and then done all the cleaning stuff before and then been ready right at 9. So, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? I could say all day about that kind of thing, but I don't think it you know, but I'm not too worried about it. Because also I don't want to feel rushed to finish. Like the worst thing that you can do is feel rushed in any way to like complete something like this. Because it does take a lot of patience. And again, keep in mind that this top part was not even started when we started. So the fact that we're so far along that it almost looks complete is a huge deal. Plus, I mean, with this, right, of course, because on Tuesdays, I also, oh, what day was that? That was the 7th. That wasn't, okay, never mind. Hmm. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember everything I gotta do. I just, I just don't like how today's been going because stuff came up all of a sudden, and then there's been something I've been planning on trying to do, and then I finally scheduled it for today. So still only skip one. Okay. Oh, come on. Let's see. 12:36. I still got lots of time because I don't want to quit too early and then do nothing. See, I mean, just look at that. Let's look at this one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tell you what, I'm gonna start on like the outside part of it because then all I have to do is just fill in the rest to finish it. It gives me a little something I can do. Spend a little bit more time. I don't want to just keep doing lines back and forth. Then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So then I need to do another line. Okay, come on. Don't give me no trouble. There we go. Gotta drop it like that. Excuse me. But I also haven't felt much like cross stitching really in the past week either. That's also part of what's made it hard to to set this up is having the right motivation. come on, stop catching on that corner. Again, another reason I like hoops is you tape the edges of it, and then with the hoops, it doesn't get caught so much, so you can kind of go a little bit faster. Here we go. So let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, and then 4. Oh, oh, my hands are starting to feel a little sore. Oh, oh, well, you know what? This is actually a good stopping place. Stick that needle in there. But anyway, look at that. Look at how close we are. We are super close. Just that little bit at the top. Literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. And we are finished. Look at that, look at that. Oh. I mean, once my hands start hurting, that's definitely a sign to stop. And I guess I'll probably get, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, if you guys, anyone who watched, thank you for coming to visit me while I did this. Even if you're just lurking, it really means a lot to me. Of course, you can give me a follow. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe or comment, just whatever. And again, if you have any ideas, I love to hear them because again, any ideas I like or that, or at least are good enough, I keep track of them so that I can eventually do them at a later time. Especially if there's something that you would like to see, particularly with these cross stitches, or in relation to the different games I talked about, any kind of games you might be interested in there. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. You have a good one. CwC.